I'm curious for those here in the audience. I'm going to do a little survey. This will be a little bit more interactive here. I'm curious, throw out, what are some of your favorite books that you've read that are novels, not business books? We don't need more of those, no offense. Throw out like your favorite books. Come on, just throw them out. Big Magic. Lord of the Rings. Columbus Day. Swan House. Kill a Mockingbird. I love it. Now, how many of those books that became a movie, did you like the movie better than the book? Why do we like the books better than the movies? When we think about it as consumers, as the reader, and we hear a story being told, or even the greatest radio addresses that existed, well, I guess before I was born, as I was born in the 80s. When we think about the idea of voice or audio, or even this idea of reading a book, when we hear a story and we're reading the story, we get to decide the visuals that are being represented. When someone says they took a long walk down a brick road, we get to decide what that brick road looks like. We get to visualize that. We get to feel that connection. And there is something beautiful about that, and it's why we've always looked at this idea of us reading as being much more of a connection to the material. My daughters are big into Harry Potter, and they love reading Harry Potter, and they are very disappointed with the movies. I, on the other hand, as I admitted yesterday, diagnosed ADHD at 31 years old, and also dyslexia. I have never completed the cover to cover of any one book in my entire life. And for me, I've always been an audiobook person, being able to hear the author share those words into my ear. I remember, to me, that's that connection. And so the topic for this session is audio. And I believe the medium of audio is the most intimate medium of all content. Now, for those that were here in 2017 and 2018, you might realize that I was here talking about video. I was the guy that was saying, press the damn button. And you're going to hear a little bit later from Jennifer, who's going to be talking about that power of live video. And I'm such a big fan of live video and video in general. But the reason I look at this audio connection is much what we just said about that book. When we're connecting and we're listening to someone, they're in our ear. They're telling us a story, and we're picturing whatever we need to picture in either their story or where they're recording this piece of content. It's much like this idea of, when we think back to growing up, Black and Yellow was played when I came on here. I grew up in Pittsburgh, of course, shout out there. I wore Black and Yellow shoes for those that were confused last time. I'm curious for how many out here, how many of you remember your favorite TV station or your favorite local radio station? Radio station? We have radio stations out there? Yes? Yeah, you guys have like Kiss FM here now, right? Like, I think that's, for me, I moved from Pittsburgh to Virginia Beach. We had Z104. And Z104 was today's greatest hits. And I remember waiting and calling up the radio station just to call out my favorite song. Right? Anybody do that? Anybody would be willing to admit that you called a radio? There we go. Some of y'all. Everyone else is like, I called, I just didn't wait long enough on hold, right? And so when we think about this idea of audio and we think about intimacy, I will make this claim that I believe you do not need to have your own podcast. You don't need to be downloading Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces or Spotify's Green Room. You don't even need to have a smart speaker in your house or in your marketing. But what we do need to think about is what role does intimacy play in how we market, how we sell, and how we connect with our community. I mentioned yesterday during my talk the importance of this idea of going deeper with those that we're already connected with, turning our existing customers into fans, turning our existing fans into influencers and supporters. We oftentimes don't need to do all of the marketing when you can go to the comic book shop where Mark was at, and I was in there the whole time, and I had nostalgia flashbacks of me chasing down comic book shops to go find baseball card distribution, right? And I can be the greatest marketer for Mark because of that connection, that intimacy to that medium. Unfortunately, in the digital space for far too long, the place that we left intimacy for, connection, even the pictures of our employees, was on our about page of our website. So everyone that's telling me like, oh, we have the story of our company. Here's some breaking news. Nobody goes to your About page. If they are, they're either trying to track down an employee or they want a job. We have to start thinking about that intimacy. And for me, as someone that's traveled my entire career, every single year since 2004, I've been on the road at least 35 weeks a year. And last year was a very interesting year for me because I've worked from home my entire life. I've traveled my entire life. And all of a sudden, my livelihood, which is speaking from the stage, was taken away. And all of a sudden, I had to work from home, stay home in home, and not connect, not get what I get here, not be able to travel to all the cities that my entire adult life have been built. And for me, my mental health really was taking a battle. It was a tough time for me. It was a tough time because my only time out of the house was to go pick up my daughters from their mom's house and come back to my house in Virginia. I had built a life that designed for living on the road. And throughout that fall, there was this idea of disconnection, loneliness. And for anyone that follows me on social, that might sound weird because I'm on every social channel, posting all day, every day. I got content everywhere. I got followers and fans online. But for me, that true connection was missing. And on December 9th, I downloaded it, or actually earlier in December, but on December 9th, I had an aha moment in my social media journey. And I had downloaded this app called Clubhouse. Anyone here heard of Clubhouse? For those that aren't familiar, there is an app that came out about a year ago, right about now, founded out in Silicon Valley. It's called Clubhouse. It's an audio-only app. So there's just little icons. You pick a little icon of your profile picture, and that's it. So everyone can tune in. It's a public place. You can just jump into the room and listen to all kinds of different people. They've had Elon Musk on there. They've had Tony Robbins has been on there. Just the other day, they had Malcolm Gladwell interviewing Adam Grant. Some really powerful discussions happening on this app. But for me, when I first downloaded the app, I was kind of turned off. I really couldn't figure it out in August. I don't think I was in the right headspace. But on December 9th, that all changed. And part of that was because I opened the app and I was scrolling the hallway, and the name of the room was Jack of All Trades, Masters of None, Welcome. Now, I am a proud multi-hyphenate, which just simply means I like to do a lot of things on a lot of topics in a lot of areas, and I do not need to niche down or find my one focus, because when I do, it actually hurts my creativity. It actually breaks me down. And so I jumped into this room, and when I jumped into this room on this app Clubhouse, I see all these pictures on the screen, and I just start listening, and I started feeling this like emotional connection of like, man, these are my people. People talking about this idea where they struggled to find just one focus, or they really are someone they're a musician, but they also like to weld on the side, and that's actually a legit one. I'm still friends with her. She's an amazing musician who does welding as her day job. There were some amazing people that have these massive passions in different areas. And so for me, I spent about 30 minutes, I raised my hand, I got up on stage, and I shared a little bit about my story about being multi-hyphenated and being very proud about being a generalist or a polymath or multi-passionate, whatever you want to call it. And I ended up spending 3 hours on that stage. And just for a little bit of context, there was only 2 men on this entire stage of this room with about 180 people listening. So about 180 people, 2 of them were men. I was the only white man in that room. 3 hours I spent in that room connecting with people in ways that I could not imagine. I woke up that morning, December 10th, and for the first time in that year, I felt like I had the connection that I was missing. Now, for me, that might sound even a little bit odd, and I can honestly say I didn't want to admit it to people because I'm the video guy. I'm the press the damn button, put your face on video. I love video. I'm all over social media, and I was asking myself, what happened on this app? What happened in this social audio platform, this medium that allowed me to connect? Now, I will say, one of the things for me as a podcaster, and I think someone mentioned it yesterday, I always say that nothing we do online in social media will ever replace a handshake. Don't let anyone sell you on anything that we do online will replace a handshake. But if we invest in people telling our story and doing a lot of things you guys have heard yesterday and as well today, we do have the opportunity to have more handshakes. And what I like to say, turn handshakes into hugs and selfies, because I'm a millennial and I kind of like that side. And when I think about that idea of those hugs and selfies and this idea of what we have, I always said, when a podcast listener of mine, I've hosted 5 podcasts total over the years, well over 1,000 interviews since I started on my podcasting journey. When someone came up to see me and they were a podcast listener, They hugged me extra tight. It was a really good hug. Versus someone that maybe followed me on Twitter or Instagram. And so as I was thinking through this day, this December 10th, where I felt whole, I felt seen, but I also realized that these people they get me, they're my people, yet I was not connected with them on any social media app. The idea of serendipity has been missing from social media since day one. I mean, has anyone tried to search for something on Facebook that you were looking for and find it? Like, it's near impossible. I mean, for them being as great as they are, Facebook's search is atrocious. The idea of discovering people that we don't know, don't like us, never heard of us, don't even know who we are, but we share a common purpose or a shared passion is really where that magic happens. And for me, that happened in that day. And I will tell you, I leaned in on this app on that December 10th, as I do have that addiction personality with my ADHD. And I spent well over 60 hours a week on Clubhouse for the next, let's just say 14 weeks. And for many, they ask me, what are you doing? You're wasting your time on that app. How are you doing this? Where does this fit in your business? And I will say, we had to move some things in my business. I had to give up some things that I thought I would never give up in my business to embrace this app. And then when I started to look back at what I was doing, I was not in business and marketing rooms every day. I was not in rooms that had to do about what I did for work. I was in a lot of mental health rooms, a lot of ADHD rooms where we just shared our ADHD passion and journey. I got to co-host a room every single Saturday on a topic of trauma dumping and how we can be vulnerable and transparent without triggering others in the audience that are going through something that they might not be prepared to handle. I got to share the stage with those like Les Brown and spend hours with Les Brown on an audio app. And for those that don't know Les Brown, he is the godfather of what you do on these stages. And he's run a call-in phone line. I think he said for 21 years, every Sunday, he's done a call-in phone line, and he switched it to this app. But the reason I tell all of this is because I asked myself on that December 10th, and I've been asking myself a lot since, what about this medium of social audio? And Twitter, anyone who's here on Twitter, Twitter rolled out Twitter Spaces to everyone. If you actually open your app on your phone, you actually all have Twitter Spaces right now, which is their audio platform. You'll notice at the very top, there's a little circle with your photo on it. If you click on it, it'll say, do you want to start an audio room? Now, the beauty of this is you do not have to do your makeup. I don't have to put my hat on. You don't have to get dressed up. You need no special gear. I do all of it with just as simple as my AirPods. Talking to Les Brown for hours on my AirPods. But for me, part of the thing that I started to look at and say, why is this medium so much better? It's not just the fact that we are more connected because we can visualize it, right? When you hear someone's voice. But for me, it came down to this idea that when we are communicating on a social audio platform, we are also communicating with those that are watching and listening in the same format. So what I mean by that is, if you were listening to a room on Clubhouse or Twitter Spaces or Spotify, you can raise your hand. Anyone can raise your hand, come up on stage and ask a question. Unlike every other medium, we post an Instagram post, everyone comments in text, and then we have a picture. We're on live video, and we're the live video host, and everyone's commenting in text. There's an immediate divide. There's an immediate separation between us and our community, us and the people we're talking to. And to me, this magic of what social audio has opened up is what has allowed not only this intimacy, but allowed us to have conversations I would have never dreamed of. I'm doing a research paper now with actually Stanford's medical school on removing the bias around ADHD. I would have never had the opportunity to be on a stage or even contact with someone in that medium or in that genre. I happen to raise my hand and ask a question. And after I ask the question, they DM me and say, hey, would you like to come on stage and co-host a 1-hour room with me? Now we're doing a research paper on that topic, and I have a daughter that's diagnosed with ADHD. And so for me, part of the thing that I wanted to share on social audio, and I jumped at the opportunity to kind of pick up where Judy kind of set this bar, is we have to really start thinking about all technology and all mediums and ask ourselves, I don't need to be everywhere for everyone. Because I know everyone's like, oh God, there's another app. Like, Brian, for the love of God, I do not need another app, right? Like, does anyone here want another social media app? Or not one person in this room, full of marketers. Not one of us want another app. So what I ask us to start thinking about is, why are people on this app? Why did I switch my business and start going 60 hours into an audio platform? Because for me, serendipity existed. I was able to discover people that didn't look like me, that weren't from my part of town. Probably we weren't even following the same hashtags, but we shared those same visions. It was magical. The idea that we could connect on the same medium, there was not a barrier to entry. All you need to do was simply have a phone. The other part of this that you have to think about in your today, day-to-day work, and I was talking about tech yesterday, which is kind of a funny segue here, is that with social audio, you can't mail it in. You can't outsource it. You can't have your assistant do it. Damon John was doing a room the other day, and I jumped in and raised a hand and asked Damon John a question. And he said, send me a DM, and I'm going to get back to you. Within 15 minutes after his room, Damon John sent me a DM back. And I laughed because I've been on a same stage as Damon John a couple of times. I've had that luxury. I've had the opportunity to kind of be in the same arena, but never once did I ever feel like Damon John was replying. I was like, oh, that's probably your assistant or probably someone else doing the work. But because of this platform being audio only and being in real time, there's no recordings and no things that are leaving out anywhere else. There is an intimacy and vulnerability there that is truly beautiful. And so we have to start thinking about our medium today. If you have an email newsletter, how are you creating that intimate connection with your audience? I can tell you you're not doing it by at the bottom of your newsletter saying, please do not reply to this email. Because somewhere up above that, you're like, I love you, I care about you, I want your feedback. And at the bottom it says, please do not reply to this email. This inbox is not checked. I know, we're all laughing like, uh-oh, that's my newsletter. Think about that in this day and age with COVID and what we had gone through the last 18 months. We are craving connection. We are craving intimacy. We are truly looking for opportunities for us to have a more empathetic connection with our audience and our people. I mean, I'm wearing a love is love shirt, right? For me, this all comes down to this idea that how can we together amplify our messages, put our things out to the world. And so social audio is out there right now. There's a couple apps that exist. Facebook just rolled out their version of it. Unfortunately, it's only for celebrities at the moment. I know Gary Vaynerchuk will be doing one tomorrow. So if you go to his page, you can actually listen on Facebook audio. Rumor is LinkedIn will have one out by the end of October, an audio platform built into LinkedIn. And so we have Twitter Spaces, we have Clubhouse, which is kind of the first to market app from one of they're backed by A16Z, which is the Anderson Horowitz venture capital side. We have Spotify, which everyone's familiar with Spotify, the music place. They rolled out a new app called Green Room, which is a social audio platform. So the thing that I'm here to share is that I believed in the power of video and live video. I've been telling everybody to press the damn button for 6 years. And then COVID happened, and people realized, oh my goodness, I gotta get video. And then I think we also realized another thing about video and Zoom, other than how hard it is to figure out the mute button. All been there. And just a little secret, if you hold down the space bar when you're talking, and then you let go, it automatically mutes you back. There's a little Zoom hack there for you, bonus points. But the thing that I think we also learned with Zoom or virtual is video isn't as easy as we thought the kids were making it look. Video wasn't as easy as us just kind of like jumping on. And let's face it, Zoom fatigue exists not because of virtual or Zoom. It's because we've always had this problem. We were creating Zooms when it should be a phone call or an email. It's just like when we went in the office and everybody met in the conference room and it's like a 30-second pitch. You're like, why don't we get this via email, right? And so what we have to start thinking about is how are we connecting with our community? How are we building these things that really matter in our business? Because I firmly believe, we've heard it throughout these 2 days here, that we are all in the same business. We all have the exact same business. We are all in the business of trust. Our goal is to build trust, maintain trust. Probably the hardest part of this is scaling trust. And we have to start thinking about this idea that our consumers are smarter than they've ever been before, more connected than they've ever been before, and they have more choice than they've ever had before. It's why when someone tells me that this generation has the attention span of a goldfish, I say you're wrong. We've seen them binge watch Game of Thrones. We understand that we will watch hours of something. Today's generation has no time for crappy content. Because guess what? We got choices. We can go from Netflix to Hulu to Prime Video to Twitch to YouTube. For me, it's like TikTok. I end up going there for like hours on end, just mesmerized by that algorithm. But today's consumers have choices. and are willing to jump and find the people that are not wasting their time, find the people that connect with them. And so I'll just leave you with this bit for the future for me is that I really do believe the future of marketing is relatability. How are we relating with our customers? How are we letting them know that we care about them? I can guarantee if you look at your website, if you have more yous and thems than you do we's and us, you're not doing a good job. What I mean by that is you heard I said, we have a problem, right? We are dealing with the COVID. Not you or I. We're not talking at people, we're talking with them. And for me, part of that power of social audio and where I think we all have to think about this is where are you looking inside of your marketing today to grow intimacy, develop connection, and also connect at a shared medium where not only do you let your customers know that you're listening, but most importantly, you need to let them know that they are heard. Audio is transforming the way that we think about that connection. And so I challenge everyone, think about it today. How are you building trust, maintaining trust, and ultimately scaling the trust with your customers? My name is Brian Fanzo. Thank you, guys.